everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Murney Tower. Today we are doing a more seasonal cake, although you could probably make this cake anytime, maybe in the winter or fall, because it is like more of a spiced cake. So we are going to bake a Thanksgiving cake from James McFarland's The Cook Not Mad or Rational Cookery that was printed for the Canadian public. It was published in 1831 in Kingston, and it's accredited as Canada's first published cookbook. However, Thanksgiving should not be put in a Canadian book yet because it technically wasn't a holiday for Canada for a bit longer, till a bit later. So why is it in Canada's first published cookbook? And the reason for that is this book was actually an American original, and then it was changed to suit the Canadian public. James McFarland was a book importer, so this makes a lot of sense. The Cook Not Mad or Rational Cookery contains not only recipes about how to store your harvest bounty for the winter, such as how to keep green peas till Christmas, and other kind of funny recipes, such as like nice cookies that can last for 3 months. But he had other recipes like for home skills or homemakers, as you could call them, such as recipes to cure ailments, and even dyes for clothes or paint. So I was wondering, why or when was Thanksgiving observed in Canada? The first national Thanksgiving in Canada was actually in 1859, so that's way after 1831. The recipe I'm using today is heavily adapted from the book. It's because the measurements in many 1800s cookbooks are not the standard American measurements like these that we use today. So it's not going to have that same standard if you try to transcribe a recipe from a cookbook from 1831. As well, some of the ingredients have changed over the years. The original recipe that you can see here, it had yeast as a leavening agent, which nowadays I'm probably going to use baking powder and soda to leaven my cake. As well, the instructions, as you can see, are very vague, so I have to be really creative. I haven't tested this recipe yet, so this is purely an experiment, so we can learn about this and see how it goes together. As well, the only recipe for icing in the book, which I have up on the screen here, called just icing for cakes, is basically a meringue with whipped egg white until it's frothy, placed on the cake and baked on. So it's a meringue. I found this a little frightening to put on a cake personally, especially because you have to put it back in the oven and all of that. It's just a little strange to me. Since I want this recipe to be palatable and accessible to many people's taste, I'm just going to do a modern buttercream. If you were interested in doing the meringue, the recipe is up from the 1831 cookbook. If you need if you wanted to try doing this yourself from this cookbook, to transcribe the measurements, there are many websites online that can help you figure out the equivalent to measurements, to make it easy for you to measure your ingredients. As well, the book I've been using heavily throughout this whole channel is Liddy Machevsky's from out of Old Ontario Kitchens. She has a very, it doesn't have all the measurements there, but she does have a chart in the back to show equivalence in size, let's say to eggs. So like if this recipe calls for 6 eggs, I'm gonna use 3 because my eggs are way bigger. Anyway, let's start baking. So for the Thanksgiving cake, you're going to need 3 cups of cake flour. I'm using all-purpose flour. I don't think it'll make that huge of a difference. 1 cup of whole milk, 2.5 cups of sugar. I'm using 3 eggs, a cup of butter, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and baking soda, 2 tablespoons of cinnamon and tablespoons of cloves. I kept that measurement pretty much the same to the Cook Not Mad recipe because it calls for 1 ounce and 2 ounces of these measurements. I'm gonna put 4 ounces of brandy. I do not own brandy and it can be quite expensive to buy, but the equivalent I'm gonna use is just some spiced rum. And I'm gonna bake this at 350 until I poke it and it bounces back. So let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is combine our ingredients in a large bowl. as you see here. So these are all the dry ingredients. We need the flour, the spices, sugar, baking powder, baking soda, salt. I'm also gonna sift these, and then I'm gonna use a whisk to combine them. Okay, so my dry ingredients have all been sifted and mixed. So now in a separate bowl, I am going to whisk together my wet ingredients. So that's my eggs, my butter, milk, and vanilla. So I need 3 eggs. So I'm now adding my butter, which is 1 cup. You'll notice your butter has gotten lumpy. That's okay, because that helps add layering to your cake, kind of like when you make pancakes with melted butter. So now we're going to add the wet ingredients into the dry. And we're going to combine it until smooth. What we don't want to do though, we don't want to overmix it. Now, a common trick in my family, at least when we make cakes, is we add a bit of boiling water to our recipe. So I have my kettle going right now, and we're gonna add some boiling water to this in a bit. Which actually helps make your dough running. So don't panic if it seems really dry right now. That will be helped soon. But what you don't want to do is whip it or overmix. So this is getting pretty smooth. I still have some lumps in here. I need a good metal whisk for this, but I'm just using my good old plastic one right now. You can also use a spatula to scrape up any of the remnants in the bottom of the bowl that seem a little dry to you. Now my kettle's just boiling, so I'll be right back and add a half cup of boiling water to this. Okay everyone, so I have my boiling water here. I'm going to measure a 3/4 cup into my measuring cup here. I'm just reusing it because it's all going to go to the same place anyway. Okay, and now I'm going to pour this into my batter. What this does is help melt down everything and make our dough a little runnier. gonna use my spatula for this one because my dough is very thick. Beat any bubbles out of it. Okay, so now what my plan is here is now to oil my cake pans. My oven has been preheating all through this process. I'm making mine in 2 cake pans for this recipe. However, you can make 12 cupcakes, a rectangle pan or a bundt. It doesn't matter, just make your cake however you like it. And I like using my spatula to scrape out any excess that's stuck in the bowl and place it, scrape it into the cake pan. This smells really yummy actually. It smells very spicy and like fall, which is very much in our Thanksgiving theme. Okay, and then what I like doing when I fill my pan, even if it's a muffin pan, I just drop it a couple times, again, to beat out any bubbles that are in my dough, and make it level. Perfect. Okay, so that was the first step in our cake making. We are going to bake this for about 25 to 35 minutes, or until when we press it down with our finger, it doesn't sink, but it bounces back. And then I'm gonna let it cool for a while, and then we are going to finally make our buttercream icing and then ice our cakes. So I'll be back in a bit. Hi everyone, so welcome back. The cake is finally cooled. I've also trimmed it already for icing, so that's when you do the edges of all the crispy bits and just the tops. One of my cakes fell out of the pan as I was removing it, so you'll notice my bottom half is a little messy, but it should be all right. Icing can hide everything. So we're going to do a simple buttercream icing because the icing recipe that's in the Cook Not Mad cookbook is just a little strange. They use meringue, which is like a beaten egg white until it's frothy, and then they basically bake it onto your cake. I didn't really want to go that route, so I'm just doing a modern buttercream. So let's get to it. You will need 1 1/3 cups of powdered sugar, 4 tablespoons of butter, 1 to 2 tablespoons of hot water or a bit of brandy, and 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla. And you can add spices if you'd like. I'm just gonna go straight vanilla because I tasted some of the cake and it's very spicy and very rum tasting already, so I'm not gonna add the rum either, or in the recipe's case, brandy. I'm just gonna do some hot water. I'm also doubling it because I actually wanted to try to do some decorations too, because why not? So let's get to it. I already have my icing sugar here. I did a bit more because I'm gonna make a bit more icing. I also have a bit more butter that's already melted. You might want to use like a mixer or a hand mixer like mine. My other mixer was a little too large to set up, so let's get to it. So I'm gonna add my butter. I'm gonna add some vanilla. That's the best part. And finally, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of hot water. Okay, now let's make some orange. I think I want to make my cake orange. So my neon colors here, because that's all I had, claim that if I add 4 green and 2 pink, I'm gonna get orange. We'll see what happens. As you can see, my poor cake here got kind of messed up as I was removing it from my pan. However, I put it on the plate I'm going to decorate on just to keep it somewhat safekeeping. Oh my gosh. I don't know what happened with this guy. I feel sad for it, but icing hides these problems. Again, I'm no professional cake decorator, so you can do what you can do. Okay. So first thing you want to do is ice the inside of your cake, or the middle, I guess I should say. A thick enough layer for people eating it, so it's not dry. You don't want a dry cake. Again, in the 19th century, you would just slap some meringue on a 1-layer cake, I guess in the case of our cookbook, and then throw it in the oven, and then it would just be crisp on the outside, which I think is interesting, but I also want to eat and enjoy this cake, so I chose to do buttercream if I'm already baking. Also, I just realized this orange looks really pink, but again, I'm no professional. All I had were my neon colors on me just now. So it'll be a very pink fall cake, I guess. Nothing else I can do there. Okay, so now we're gonna put on our second layer here. So now I have 2 layers going on, and now it's just time to slap all this on and do the top and the sides, which is what we want to do next. Okay, well, I'm done all that. Yeah, I'm not definitely as good as I used to be with cake making. Also, because the one was broken, I found it would not stay even on the plate. However, here is my leading cake of crusted pecan. However, I'm gonna cut it, see how it is. The pieces I trimmed off that I tasted were quite good. So yeah, I'll see you in a minute. Hi everyone, I'm back. I did record myself yesterday taste testing the cake, but my camera was not recording. So, I thought since you would probably all be really curious to see how it tastes, I saved my cake here. There's the slice I ate yesterday. Gives me an excuse to eat another piece of cake. So I'm just gonna cut myself a sliver because it is still 11 in the morning. I also was able to chill it for a while because I did mention yesterday one of the difficulties I had was my apartment is not climate controlled. So I had a lot of trouble with the icing melting on me, trying to do any form of decoration. Okay. I also think next time I should have done a thicker layer of icing in the center, but that's no big deal. I haven't made a layered cake in a very long time, so here's the cake. As you can see, my layer in the middle is a little thin, but that's okay. I'll share the love with the other cake around it. Still as good as yesterday. Yeah, so this is actually a very good cake. If you enjoy raisins, you can add raisins to it, which the original recipe did have raisins, so I would recommend. Yeah, it's delicious. It's not too sweet either. I mean, the icing makes it sweet, but the cake itself would even be good. It's just like a loaf cake without icing. Again, just be creative, do what you want to do. And yeah, send us your Thanksgiving creations to our Murney Tower social media or our email, info@murneytower.com. Again, I'm sorry I lost my footage of me eating it yesterday, but either way, I think it's still good. Yeah, I'll probably eat the rest of this cake this week. For storage, since I did keep it overnight, I recommend wrapping it up in some wrap, making sure to cover the sides that were cut open as well as the edges, and keep it in the fridge because the icing is made out of butter. If you put icing on it, if it's just a loaf cake, you can keep it at room temperature, or you can freeze it and save it for later, whatever works. So yeah, thank you for joining me, and I hope bon appetit. I hope it's good. Goodbye.